is Monday, May 6th, and let me just turn down the sound. Monday, May 6th, and it is the Mother's Day edition of CannaPodcast. So I wanted to talk about, first of all, some of the things that are currently illegal that my grandmother did when I was little. My grandmother collected rainwater, which is currently illegal. We drank raw milk, which is also currently illegal. And we would go fishing without a license. And that's illegal as well. One of the things my grandmother never did, but she never had a relationship with cannabis because cannabis had been illegal for such a long time. It was taken away from her, and she never got to have the benefits of this companion plant. And although she was very in tune with nature and made a lot of our own food and our home remedies, she never had the luxury of having cannabis as part of her medicinal toolbox, as it were. So just want to honor all mothers and grandmothers today, because cannabis is really a women's herb and always has been for hundreds of thousands of years. Cannabis it's well known that Queen Elizabeth used to use tincture, which is an alcohol or glycerin. In the circumstance, it was a alcohol preparation of cannabis to soothe her rather intense menstrual cramps. And that's just one of the many hundreds of uses of this plant. The standard alcohol preparation of cannabis can be taken as an oral tincture, but back in the Elizabethan era and prior, it was actually smoothed on colicky babies' skin to soothe them as well. So cannabis has been used by mothers to help to soothe their children. In addition, cannabis has been used as an herb to help during childbirth for many hundreds of thousands of years. It helps to relax and soothe the mother and make the birthing process a much less traumatic experience for both the mother and the child. So those are just some of the kind of glimpses into how cannabis has been a companion plant to humankind throughout the ages. So, in fact, all humans have an endocannabinoid system, and the highest naturally occurring percentage of cannabinoids is in mother's milk. The very first drink of life that a newborn baby takes from its mother is colostrum. And colostrum is incredibly rich with cannabinoid, which is one of just a few of the amazing constituents in cannabis. And it teaches the child to suckle, to draw more milk out, and also gives them the desire to have an appetite. And all these things are kind of beautiful built-in systems that we have to use cannabis as an herbal plant and a companion plant. I wanted to talk a little bit about prohibition, and that just like mothers protect their children, prohibition was put into place to protect us from cannabis. Now, yes, of course, we all have a basic grasp of cannabis history and how cannabis was taken from us in the early 1930s, 1940s due to economic and political strategies. But prohibition was put into place. We were sold this bill of goods because we, as a culture, needed to be protected from this evil plant. And I think as responsible citizens and as responsible children, in a way, it's time to tell our parents, time to tell our government that this plant is harmless, and we have pulled the wool from our eyes, and it's time to make cannabis available to everyone, whether it be smoke therapy, vaporization, edible therapy, topical use, or one the other 100 or so odd ways to consume cannabis. I truly feel that this plant should be available, whether it's medicinal use or adult use, something that we occasionally call recreational use. All use is medicinal. My friends who drink alcohol will have a glass of wine or a glass of scotch in the evening to take the edge off, to kind of soothe their emotional woes from whatever transpired during their day. And they all claim, as I do, that it helps them enjoy life to the fullest. And for my friends who wish to use cannabis as an adult use or recreational herb, I want to say publicly that I fully support them to that endeavor. I had the pleasure of going to Denver City Council meeting today to better understand some concerns that some parents have about the use of edibles. Smart Colorado specifically, which has really risen as a voice against adult use cannabis and cannabis use in general. These are some well-meaning citizens who are parents, but they're well-meaning, but they are definitely supporters of reefer madness, some of the comments that they make. I just want to say that the main concern they had, that basically edibles were being marketed to children, and that we as industry thought leaders weren't being good champions of how things are consumed. And what I would like to say to that is that here in Colorado, we have medicinal use. Every gram of cannabis is tracked from the cultivation center to the infused product manufacturer and then is resold as a finished good, whether it be a cannabis-infused beverage, a cannabis-infused topical, an edible, a pharmaceutical-grade capsule. Everything is tracked by the gram. That cannabis is then sold to the medical cannabis center, where you have to present not only what we commonly refer to as your red card, which is the state certification that you have a doctor's recommendation for cannabis, but also your driver's license. And end users are carded. As the parent of a small child myself, I can tell you that it's unacceptable for a child who's not under a doctor's recommendation to use cannabis or to consume cannabis. Just like I wouldn't give my child a glass of wine, I certainly would lock that wine up, just as I would if I were to have a cannabis edible in the house. And what I would like to say to the people who would like to take edibles out of the cannabis culture is that these are necessary and needed things within the environment, within the culture that's been created around cannabis. And also, if my son finds a Jolly Rancher in my handbag, or some Hershey's Kisses in a dish on the dining room table, he won't consume one. He will bring one to me and ask permission to have one. And I'd just like to say that this is a parenting moment, because it is tracked from seed to sale. And even though we don't have any cannabis in our house, if we were to go to a friend's house, my child would never consume anything without permission, because we have raised him from the very beginning to always ask permission. And we always have our meals at the table. So there's a dedicated meal time and a dedicated treat time. We enjoy those things, but we always know what we're consuming. So just my soapbox moment on good parenting. And, it's an important part of being a mother, and an important part of being part of the cannabis industry, is being able to have those conversations with your children, with your children's teachers, with the friends of your children who go to the same school, whom we might always be playing together, and then, of course, city council, state legislator, whether it be in Colorado, or I personally have had some conversations with the state of Washington alcohol board that's been put in place to govern what adult use will look like in Washington state. So just a really interesting climate right now in Colorado. And while I don't have any concerns about the edible market being taken away, it is concerning that people still believe in 2013 that edibles can be bad for you. So very, very interesting. Currently, we're tracking a couple bills in the House. Here in Colorado, House Bill 1317 is really the working language for Amendment 64. I'm deeply concerned about two things. The THC driving bill. We all know that consuming alcohol or cannabis or any kind of prescription drug that would impair your ability to drive is not a good or responsible thing. And it saddens me that this language keeps being added back into bills. This is the fourth year in a row that we've had to deal with this language. And the sad part about it is the people have consistently voted for adult use, for medicinal use here in Colorado, but the legislators keep wanting to legislate around drugged driving when there's already language in the statute that makes it illegal. So I'm not a proponent of duplicate effort. When Representative King 3 years in a row kept putting the language in, there's no scientific basis for the 5 nanogram rule. And I certainly personally would not want to be subjected to a roadside sobriety test that entails blood being drawn on the side of the highway. So as a citizen of Colorado, I'm deeply troubled as to why this language keeps being put back in these bills. The other thing that we're kind of tracking is trying to understand what's going on with the Department of Justice. Eric Holder still hasn't really given us any definitive go-ahead or hold off on whether or not the Obama administration will curb the use of adult or medical cannabis in the United States. And, there's really 3 patterns of thought that when I interact with my cannabis industry friends that we talk about. And really, if you're watching this, and I think we all are, the 3 things that could possibly happen is, we could continue on in this holding pattern, which I really don't perceive can last, because they have to make some kind of definitive statement soon. Not only are there the hundreds of thousands, millions, if you will, of cannabis consumers in the U.S., but the whole world is really watching to see what the Obama administration will do. Obama's been joking about cannabis use in his speech, and that's all good and well, but it's not all good and well when we are unnecessarily persecuting and putting tax-paying citizens in jail and in prison for cannabis use when it's just not necessary. So the 3 things that we see are status quo. The status quo really has been shifted, and we are eagerly awaiting to hear what Eric Holder will say. The other thing is that they might just leave us be and let us regulate ourselves. I personally don't, as much as I would like that to happen, I don't think that's going to happen. I think what is more likely to happen is that the federal government will possibly sue the state of Colorado and or the state of Washington to get us to halt our adult use strategies within these states. Either way, it's a states' rights concern at this point. I hope that we have enough positive data points within this, the shift from recreational to adult use, that won't happen. So, and if you're concerned about bringing recreational adult use or medicinal cannabis use to your state, there are 2 organizations that I would specifically steer you to. Normal.org is not only an amazing, I'll just go to their website right now, amazing place to get current, up to date. They're working to reform marijuana laws, but that's basically NORML.org. And I visit the site probably once or twice a month to just see new information that's been added. And then Marijuana Policy Project. And the Marijuana Policy Project, they have been working for quite a while and really have been the champions of bringing smart cannabis policy to the United States, where NORML is really a consumer's site to get information about consuming marijuana and what's legal in each state. Marijuana Policy Project, that's www.mpp.org. And essentially they change laws. So I've had the pleasure of working with both organizations, mainly MPP, just from an advocacy and education volunteering point of view, but really great website. So actually, if I'm a little distracted, it is